What's the number one challenge for businesses today?
Workforce development, attracting, recruiting, and retaining people.
And that's why we created this podcast, designed for the frustrated CEO, the under-resourced recruiter, or the overworked manager, to give you the tools to tackle those WTF moments.
It's time to open another Workforce Therapy file.
Hello, Workforce Therapy Files listeners. As you know, one of the things we aspire to do is to provide leaders and business decision makers with tools to do great things for their people. So today, I want to share something, and there's a little bit of vulnerability here, so I hope you guys will bear with me on the conversation. But I've recently started to engage in executive coaching, personally, rather than providing coaching to others. And I got to tell you, I am definitely living in cobbler's children wear no shoes. This is not something that I've always done a great job of for myself, is to dive into coaching relationships. But I have a fantastic coach over at Building Champions. They didn't ask me to give that plug, but I'd like to share it. A coach. I called her a champion. And one of the things that she is encouraging me to do is to spend more time being intentional about myself, which is not what I thought our coaching time would be spent together. And so I thought it would be really good for us to talk about this as a team. So just out of curiosity, show of hands, and we've asked our buddy Jimmy Ray over here to join us. I don't think he likes anybody to call him Jimmy Ray, but we're going to for today, right, Jim?
I've heard it all my life.
So we've asked Jim to join us today because this is a conversation I think we can all benefit from. And like I said, I'm at the beginning of this life planning race and not at the beginning of life, so I'm a little tardy. But I'm curious as to what others are doing. So I'm going to start with Molly. Molly, so do you create a personal life plan, and what's your process?
Yes. So absolutely love to share. When the kids were little, it's something that we did Thanksgiving weekend for the next year. We would all do vision boards, and with the kids, it's a lot of fun just to see where their brain goes and how creative they can be. And we would color or cut things out, just as you do, and you have your poster board of all the things you see yourself for the next year and what it looks like and what you want for yourself. And I think when we started doing that as a family and understanding where each of us were just in our seasons of life in general, it was very telling that there needed to be something else. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Vision boards are great. They give you something to constantly focus on and go back to and redirect your brain to think, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be working to get to that point. What am I not doing to get there? But it's bigger than that. Because I think when you get to the point where you're looking at it that way, it's still short term. And can we all just be real transparent now and say, let's take an average lifespan of 80 years.
Is that the average?
Typically.
Okay.
72 for men.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So I need to also put in my plan that I might be by myself for a little bit.
So if you take a piece of paper, like a bingo card, and make 80 squares, put X's through every square until you're that old. So if I'm 48, soon to be 49, and I mark out 48 boxes. That's not a lot of boxes left. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to work as hard as I'm working right now. I don't want to be as stressed out as I am right now about everything, not anything in particular, everything.
Right.
Because at the stage in my life in which I'm at, owning a business, having people that I feel, this is just my personal brain, depend on me for their livelihood, that's pressure, not including my husband and my kids. Mm-hmm. These are people that work with me. I didn't want to do that. Where do I want to be? And yes, I'm holding my brandy in a big rim glass. Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I see myself in 10 years? Instead of saying that, where do I want to be? Mm-hmm. Now, where do I see myself? Where do I want to be? How do I want to be when I want to retire or semi-retire? What does that life look like? Can I live the life I'm living today as I'm semi-retired? Or how do I make the life that I want to live that I'm living today retired?
Okay.
The
So I'm
goal-
hearing this, but it still sounds big
It is big.
and
your
big and right, but it's big in a way that my head can't wrap around what it would take for me to even answer those questions.
So how about this? When you think about life in 20 years,
I have a blank.
why?
It's like I'm one of those people that say that they can't, like if I were to tell you to imagine a puppy in your head right now, and you're like, oh, I can see him. I can see that the puppy has spots and is brown and white. There are people who can't think like that. I feel like around what I see my future look like, it's blank. Like I have no concept in my mind of what that would entail.
So
And I know that sounds
So
bleak,
you're-
but
so
I don't
you're
mean it to be
broken,
bleak.
Jamie. No, I'm kidding.
Right, exactly.
I'm glad we're having this session.
No, but that's exactly, that's exactly why you reached out to this coach, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, you want to see that future. You want to understand what it's going to take to get to whatever that thing is when you do see it.
And I feel like every day I'm telling people that, and I mean, we're sitting here on a podcast where we've told people, create a workforce plan, create a business plan, understand where you want your company to go, build to that.
You have to live it.
Every conversation we're having about anything is around intentionality, right? And I feel like I do a nice job of that professionally in terms of being intentional about my behaviors. I just don't believe that I'm looking far enough in the future about my life.
It's so
Right.
funny. It's so funny you say that because when we were on a break and you just kind of brought up this idea in this book that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But that hit me because it's like, as a sales guy, as a sales manager, I can craft out a territory plan that says, okay, we're going to hit this target number. We're going to break it down. What is that per month? What is that per week? What is that? How many calls is that per day? How do we get there? And it's really interesting. But when it comes to the personal side, to your point, it's very fuzzy.
Very fuzzy.
Because none of us, 48 going on 49, I just turned 56. So I'm sitting back going, wow, that got here quickly.
And you checked a lot of boxes.
Yeah, and so you start to reevaluate what I thought was important is not as important.
Absolutely.
And then looking forward, what really, because as we get a little bit older, what we thought was important isn't.
That's right. Yeah.
It isn't as important as it used to be. So
Yeah.
simplicity and some of these other things come into play. So I'm really interested in this topic to kind of watch how you guys do this because I'm embarrassed to say, I've never done a vision board. I've heard about it. I think that's on Pinterest. I don't know what that really is. But okay, so let's talk about it. So for me, I'm going to take some notes.
Yeah. And I think part of it, Jim, for what it's worth, and at least the personal grace I'm giving myself around the topic, is that I've been doing the other stuff for 25 years. I haven't been life planning for 25 years. So it's going to feel fuzzy and it's going to feel uncomfortable. And so I don't know. That's the
It's always
grace I
easier to
give
help
myself.
other people get closer to their
Absolutely.
dreams. And
And I almost feel like the vision board thing, people are like, oh, yeah. But the first time that you have that vision board and you hit a goal that you put on the vision board, it's like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I can circle it and put a check mark through it. And now what else is on the vision board of things that I need to hit?
Yeah. It feels very woo-woo to
Yes.
say you're going to manifest something in your
Yes.
life, but I do think putting it there holds you accountable to an extent. I've been doing it for almost 20 years, maybe 20 or more. I don't know, around that. But the ones I do are typically I do a work column and a personal column. And it's not a lot. It's not like I put 50 things on there every year. It's just, 4 to 10 things that I want to get done. But it's measurable, It has a specified amount of time I'm going to do it in. It has either a dollar amount or a number of days or whatever it is that I'm going to do this thing. Maybe I'm going to lose some weight. It's going to be that number. Whatever those things are, they're measurable so that I know what done looks like. Because if I don't, I'll just count it as, oh, yeah, I kind of did that.
Yeah.
I also don't allow myself to take things off my vision board unless there's a major thing that happens. Like, if I'm going to do this thing, like, something major has to happen for me to take it off. So it's there because I want it to stare me in the face.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me, every day when I look at it, I go, I'm not doing anything to get to that thing I want to do. I want to take an extra week off of vacation this year. How do I get there? What do I do to make that happen?
Jason, let me ask you this. When you're defining your vision board, is it long-term or do you break it down into, okay, in this year, this is what I want to accomplish? How do you what's your time frame?
For me, it's yearly, but that's a great point because I'm turning 50 this year, and now I'm like, I want to think like you, Jamie. I'll have my annual one, but I also want to have like a 3-year one, a 5-year one, a 10-year one, and then be working toward those things because there are things I want to do in that amount of time, and I do. I mean, it sounds morbid, but maybe I've got 20 years left.
I want to challenge you on that to sounding morbid. How about you, instead of saying that, think of it as how you're going to feel your joy.
Right.
And the steps that you take to get to that point. It will come to an end.
Yeah.
But the joy that you're going to have in between then and now.
Well, and I just mean like for the audience, for anyone who's thinking about this, like it sounds morbid. It feels morbid to
I
say,
understand now.
I'm
Sorry.
going to live somewhere this long.
Yeah.
However, I want to make the most of those days.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I do count. I mean, I've got a countdown running with the time my son will be living in the house. I'm over halfway through that now.
Oh, yeah. We realized the other day that every year prior to spring break, it's like, oh, we got to get taxes done, and we got to do this and that.
Uh-huh.
And I told my husband, I'm like, you realize after this year, we only have 4 years left with our daughter for spring break.
Yeah.
And I don't even know for real whether or not that last year she's going to want to do spring break with us.
Oh, if you're buying, she's going.
When you
I'll
moved,
tell you that.
when you moved out of your parents' home, you have spent at that moment 92% of the time you will ever spend with them.
That's insanity to me.
And again, that sounds morbid. That sounds awful. Well,
Especially
how
'cause
about
my
you
kids
just
are some of my
use that
favorite people in the
time?
whole
If
wide
you've
world.
got it with you, like if you can, and some families do better than others at staying. I know Molly does really well with her kids and keeping them close to her, and they want to be with her. But that's not everybody's case.
Yeah.
So you have to plan for that worst case scenario. Like maybe they move off, maybe they don't live near you, or okay, well, what are you going to do with those last 4 spring breaks?
Right. Yeah.
So
That's a great question.
You're going to make some kick-ass memories. That's what you're going to do.
that's going to be on
I'm
your
saying.
4-year. Maybe you have a 4-year vision board that's about spending time with her. What are you going to do? I'm going to take a girls' trip every year. She's going to trip with her dad. We're going to do a group trip. We're going to whatever those things are. Maybe it's not travel, but we're going to learn a new. We're going to and I'm going to invest in time to have a hobby together, so that we have something that lives on, a reason to get together when she moves out. I don't know, but there's things you can do to at least put milestones on there that you're going to try to achieve. And maybe it's not public. Maybe you're not sharing this with everybody. It's in a personal diary or something. But it does, for me anyway, it holds me accountable.
How did you get started? Like, what was the impetus to be like, I'm going to make a vision board? Because 20 years ago, I don't feel like people were sitting around and being like, what's on your vision board? But I do feel like it comes up a lot more now. And I think that could be because of the circles that I run with are very different than the circles I was running with 20 years ago. But I'd love to hear how you guys got started.
For me, I quit a big corporate job I had. I was getting out of the rat race in that way, and I was going to take a year off. That was my plan is I'm going to take a year off, and I'm going to figure out what I want to do with my life. Figure out what I want to do when I, air quotes, grow up. And so I literally took a poster board. I was like, okay, I'm going to do one of these vision boards. And I just wrote on it with marker, like I just started. Actually, I had multiple poster boards because I wadded them up, and that's not going to work. And I got to the one that I was going to do. And it included things like try consulting, try this. It was a bunch of things I wanted to just experiment with. Try to be a fractional senior leader for a small company or this or that. And within 4 weeks of leaving that job, I was the fractional VP of marketing for a company. I had a consulting client. I mean, like I achieved them so quickly. I was like, okay, I need a new vision board. I don't think I know what I'm doing here. Like these were things I can get, because when you don't have a job, you have all the time in the world. I'm like, I'm just going to knock this stuff out. So,
And at the time, you weren't a parent.
I wasn't a parent. Yeah,
that's
that
right.
was
you
helpful.
could focus
Very helpful.
very heavily on that.
And I think if I were a parent at the time, my vision board would look very different. I would have been like, I'm going to spend a year. I'm going to pick him up every day from school. We're going to do this. We're going to learn that. We're going to travel together. It would be very different. And I want to do that. While he's in the house, I want to yank him out of school for a year. Why do we have to live in this system of rules that is around us? Maybe there's a life where we can do that. I don't know, but that sounds hard, and it is hard. very hard.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I would get it done, but if I decided I wanted to do something like that, I'd put it on the vision board and I'd start backfilling a little plan. Okay, to do this, I would have to do this. I have to have income. I have to, how's this going to work? How am I going to get him out of school? What would that look like?
Sure.
So you start to, but if you put it on there, again, it's like you're kind of manifesting it, because if you are a motivated person, if you're a person that achieves like we all do here and like many of the leaders listening to this podcast do, then you're going to be the type of person that's like, that's going to bug the heck out of you if you don't do that thing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think I was telling you guys, I believe I told you guys before we started recording this, that starting this coaching around a focus on self was not how I thought this was going to play out. I've already mentioned that on the podcast. Okay, good. I came up leadership-wise through education about servant leadership. It's the scraping off windshields whenever it iced so that your employees didn't have to do that after a long shift. It was showing up on all the shifts to serve the holiday meal. It's always been, how do I help you live the life you want to live kind of leadership, right? So last year I went and sat down and did my very first vision board with my best friend, and we took this workshop, and there was this packet of things to fill out, and it was emotional for me to even start the process. Because thinking about what I wanted without thinking about everything everybody else wanted or needed from me was so foreign.
that's
And
a
I
great
live
point.
in this like checklist mindset of day in and day out, and it was just complicated.
One thing I've started doing to that point, Jamie, is that with the last couple of times I did a vision board, I have to tell myself, and it was really uncomfortable for me to realize this, but I have to tell myself, is this something I want or something I think I should do?
Right.
Because other people around me are doing it.
Absolutely.
Curb
Let
your
that go. Break free from that.
Curb
Come
your
on now.
Yeah, curb your expectations. Like
Yes.
a lot of times, our wants and desires are constructed by the people that live in our neighborhood, or our friend group, or our family, or someone else that's done something, and we've got to figure out what's right for us. What I put on my vision board should not be anything like what you put on yours. You've got your whole thing you want to do, but sometimes we don't know what that is, and that is, to your point, being emotional, Jamie. It's upsetting sometimes to be like, do I even know what I want to do in life? I've reached this age and I haven't figured out what I want to do.
Yeah.
It's almost like I don't either, really. Even with all this vision boarding and planning, I still don't know what I want to do, but I have things in the immediate future I know. Okay, so at least I'm working toward those, and life's going to hit you and change, and bad things are going to happen, and you're going to have to work around that. So at least you have some sort of plan in place.
For me, it was when I got laid off.
Yeah.
And for 11 years, I sacrificed for my marriage, for the kids, because of all the travel. And it was West Coast travel. It wasn't easy travel. There were times that I could take our youngest with me because of the way that the company had daycare set up. Sometimes I could do that just to relieve Chad of, being the single dad, if you will, while I was traveling. But I felt emotionally tied to that job. That job defined who I was. And when I got laid off, I was devastated. It was like, I had given you so much and succeeded over and over again.
And gave up so much
Yes,
to be successful.
personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
From my kids, and took that away. And I made the decision. First of all, I gave myself 2 weeks to sulk, drink way too much wine, make bad decisions. And I did that. And then after that, I was like, you know what? No one will ever control my mind the way that I let them ever again. And it's ever 2008 is when that happened. And ever since then, the vision board. And then it was a couple of years later, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to work this hard. But I knew
And you don't have to work
right
that hard.
the dependency of life to keep up with the Joneses. That's when that mind shift happened. I don't care. Why should I care? They're not writing my mortgage payment. They're not putting gas in my car. No.
Yeah.
So understanding at that point that I'm like, okay, you know what? I know I want these things at some point in life. I want to get to this point. And then it just kind of took a life of its own. In order for me to get to these things, to these places, to these experiences? What do I have to do to empower me to get there? The hard part for me at that point was Chad and the kids.
Yeah.
Because like you, Jamie, the self-sacrificing that I did to accommodate for everyone else, I'm not trying to play a pity party. It's not like I wasn't happy. It's not like I wasn't
Or that
feeling
you didn't
cheese.
choose it.
Right.
Right.
I chose to make those sacrifices.
Sure. Nobody made you do that.
But looking at it today and what we did the last from 2008 on, that's been the game changer. The realization of the people that matter the most are me, Chad, Tristan, and Elena. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is a bonus. Mm-hmm. As long as my focus is for them, not today, but tomorrow and beyond, I'm not saying I want to leave them with this huge inheritance and all of the things, because inheritance can also be who I am as a person, more so than the material
And the experiences
things.
you've provided.
Right.
Right.
But I also know that, for example, I want to be a caretaker in my grandchildren's lives if I'm blessed enough to have them. So what do I need to make sure that that happens? I want to be intentional about taking my family on one trip a year. What do I need to do to make sure that happens? How do I create those experiences? So thinking of your life board instead of a vision board, what are the big things on your vision boards annually that are coming from your life board? Mm-hmm. How do I generate enough passion for the things that I'm doing to fulfill in other ways? Because trust me, when the kids are gone and out of the house, life changes like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I've always found interesting is that anytime that you ever see a successful, gentlemen, you have to excuse me for a second, but I am going to go towards women for a second. Anytime you ever see a successful woman speak in front of a group and there's a Q&A, the question always comes up, how do you make time to balance all of it, right? Mm-hmm. And I believe that that is true not only for women, but also men who are building any type of successful career. And I think finding a way to get out of your own way, to get out of your head, to stop setting yourself on fire to keep everybody else warm, to stop working completely around the clock and not having meaningful boundaries, to stop displaying that that's what it takes in order to do the gig, that sets up different expectations for how other people engage with you. And that takes practice.
Oh,
And sacrifice. You're going to lose people. You're going to lose friends. You're going to lose
that's
clients.
been the hardest.
Opportunities, yeah.
Sifting through that mindset and the toxicity of behaviors and recognizing like, oh, that's where that's coming from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the strength and courage to sever that, God, it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts.
It hurts your ego too.
Yeah.
When it's business oriented. Sometimes you need to quit a job. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you need to fire a client. Sometimes you need to, and those things are so hard because there's a big unknown after it. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
But don't let fear make those decisions for you.
Right. Get ahead of them. You can plan. You can plan your exit. I mean, we've all done it and many times. And just frankly speaking to HR managers and directors, there are people on your team right now who are planning their exits and they don't maybe need to be there. It's not the right place. You know, I've heard it said many times, you know, when a person leaves or is even laid off or let go, it's the best thing that ever happened to them.
Yeah.
You
and
know?
it was the best
Yeah.
thing that ever happened.
Heck yeah. And I quit my job and it was very scary and unknown. And I saved up money to be prepared for this scary thing. And like I said, 4 weeks later, I had people wanting to work with me. So
Yeah.
working for yourself, again, you have to be realistic with these things though. Create a board or a life board or whatever it is that is for you and what you want to do. Us in this room, we're all business owners. That is not for everybody. Mm-hmm. There are days when I think it is not for me, for sure. So it's, you know, what is going to work for you? And maybe you are in the right place. You just need to change a few things with the place you're in to make it the perfect place for you. But if you don't plan it or if you don't even think about it, it's never going to happen. You're just going to be stuck in that rut. So.
Okay, I have one other question, and then I also would like to share with you the book that I'm using right now to guide myself through it, if it's helpful for anybody else. But my final question that I want to ask on this topic to you guys is, how do you engage? Because you've talked very much about, like, these are the things I want for me, but you're not armies of one. You have spouses and children and everything else. How do you include them, or do you, in your vision work?
So
Go ahead.
I'll go.
Yep.
It is a conversation that's intentional, because when I made the decision to start the company, to start Incipio, obviously it was going to impact my entire family. And Chad had to be on board, or I wouldn't have been able to do it. And still today wouldn't be able to do it without his support.
Yeah.
But the pieces of life in general, it's, what do you think? Do you want this? This is what I'm thinking. Do you see that for yourself? And negotiating, it's the way a true partnership is run. It's being able to have conversation with each other to have that end goal and your partners in life, and to know where you want to be together and that you're both working towards that. I'm sure that there are times, because of the situation that he's in from an employment standpoint, that's frustrating as hell, but he also has to be there for certain reasons because of our plans.
Mm-hmm.
They're intentional decisions that we're both making and sacrificing. To your point, Jason, some days I don't feel like a great business owner, but I also know that at the end of my story, at the end of my board, I want to get to a place where the company that I'm building, I can't run anymore.
Yeah.
I want it to get to that point, to where it's beyond me. That to me will be success. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. It could happen next year. It could happen 10, 15 years from now. But I know that that's a goal. That's a life board goal, as an example. But also everything that it's going to take along the way to get to that point, the big decisions, I hate this word, the pivots that we have to make.
Why do you hate that word? That's another episode. Go ahead. Keep going.
Sorry. It takes both of us to get there.
Yeah.
So the big idea may not be the big idea when you talk to your partner, but as long as you're both working towards the big idea in some fashion that you both have together and everybody's winning, that's where the game changes.
Yeah, I don't think you can throw on your vision board that you're going to quit your job and not talk to your partner.
That's right. No, probably not a good idea.
But I think what Molly just described goes for other relationships in your life too. So if you have on your vision board that you want to get a promotion in the next 2 years to a specific position, you talk with your spouse or your partner about that and say, hey, is this something that's going to take this kind of commitment? Is this something we're okay with as a team?
Yeah.
But then you go to, if they say yes, you go to your supervisor and you say, hey, I want to work toward this role. What do I need to do to get there? Give me the steps. I mean, I've seen so many people, I've heard so many people in my life, places I've worked, say, oh, they don't even think about me for that. They didn't even think about me for that promotion. I'm like, did you tell them you wanted it?
Right.
Did you tell them that's what you want to do?
Nobody's hand-holding you, buddy.
No. Well, then they don't even think you're a candidate.
Exactly.
So you have to say, again, it's not woo-woo. You're not manifesting this stuff into reality, but you're building a path toward it. Mm-hmm. And if that path doesn't work out, that job exists somewhere else. So start considering that.
Yeah. Jim, I know I've asked a lot of questions. Did you have any more that you want to add?
No, I just, in listening to all this, and I love the fact that how Molly, you're putting on the emphasis of making sure you and your partner are aligned in what that vision is, because each of you have different roles. You're not both doing the same role. You're both building toward it. Mm-hmm. I look back at my station right now. Both my kids are out of college. I mean, they live in different cities. They are out of the nest. I am the empty nest, at this point. And that's been an interesting transition going, okay, so now what? Mm-hmm. Because, Jamie, to your point a little bit earlier, you define yourself not only by your job, but also, okay, this is where I want to pour in my time and my effort. And you did that, and now, ideally we're reaping some of those benefits. But now what? It's a new evolution. Am I prepared for this? And what do I want this to really be? Because at this point, finally, I get to be a little selfish. and to say, okay, what does Jim want, moving forward for the next 20, 25, 30 years? Or I'm going to be 105. But anyway, you've got all that going. And so that it's almost daunting, and is this vision too big? That's why I was asking you, Jason. Is it an annual vision board, or is it a longer life board with individual annual steps, and just trying to figure that out? Again, all of this is brand new to me.
It's
but
probably
I love
however
the
you
idea.
feel like you can use it best.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Molly would probably say this too. I don't have it figured out. I just know I have a system. It's working okay. I want to make it better. Maybe that needs to go on my vision board. Better vision boarding, better life planning. I'm interested
Add
in
these elements to my plan.
Yeah, because again, I don't do the longer. I mean, I have a couple things in my head I want to do, and there's a couple dates out there that I want to hit some, but I don't have it written down.
Well, maybe
So-
we'll read this book with me.
Tell me about the book.
Okay. So the book that my coach recommended is a book that's called Living Forward. And hang on, I'm going to pull it up. It is written by Michael Hyatt and Daniel Harkavy. It's available on Amazon. It also has it in Kindle and audiobook. And the subtitle is A Proven Plan to Stop Drifting and Get the Life That You Want. So the beginning part that I've recently completed is about the setup and why this is important, which is very similar to the conversation that we've had here, because ultimately, like everything else we've talked about, the absence of a plan is drift. It's just responding and living life in happenstance. And that is definitely something that I feel like I've done. I've accepted things. I've always been a high achiever. I've worked hard, etc. But things have just happened, not because I necessarily intentionally pursued them.
Yeah.
Other than my husband. He'll tell you how
maybe
that worked.
The things that have happened to you, you may not have consciously gone after.
Right.
But the life that you've led up into this point, these things, you are curating them, just not
Absolutely.
intentionally.
Including the things that are just
Yes,
happening.
there you go.
Absolutely. So maybe on if anybody wants to catch the book, engage with me. I'd love to hear any of your questions, comments, thoughts on our socials. And I would encourage the folks that are on the call today with us, if anybody wants to read it with me, I would love to hear your
I already
thoughts.
ordered it.
Oh, yay.
It'll be here tomorrow.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and surprising. I didn't realize that was Michael Hyatt. I'm very familiar with Michael. I've gone to some seminars that Michael's put on, taken some online courses that he has a phenomenal background in this area, which surprisingly wasn't his original area, but
Right.
He's really developed an entire brand around this. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to diving in on that.
Thank you.
What was it that really finally motivated you to say, you know what, I'm going to contact a coach? I mean, that's a big step. And some people are thinking, yeah, I've heard other friends or colleagues are doing that. What was it for you that said, I think I'm at that point?
It actually wasn't that intentional. It was something that was offered as a service based on the role that I have. And I recommend it to people all the time. And the only time in my career that I've had a professional coach was my first leadership role. So it's been a while. And the types of things that I led through there was very different than the types of things I'm leading through now. And I'm in my first real executive role in an organization while also owning and running a business. And I have to make sure that those two things can happen and not lose sight of the other things that are really important to me. And that feels out of whack. So I was surprised, though, that that's where she started. Because if you don't figure those things out, then you're pouring from an empty cup. If you don't figure those things out, people that you're choosing to spend time with aren't getting the best version of you. And that means something to me. So I think that diving into this book and putting energy behind it is the decision point. But the executive coaching was kind of like, okay, well, let's give this a try.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, just several times it's come up in the conversation is that theme of balance. You know, you're doing this with the kids, you're doing this with your spouse. And I think part of this as a life plan, yeah, it wasn't exactly where you thought you were going, but maybe that is the key, is trying to strike that balance. And for me and maybe other people, it's hard to feel like you're doing that consistently. I'm either all business, all personal, and it's like a seesaw, right? You never quite get it to even out very well. So that's part of what I'm struggling with.
I don't know
So
that
I think
the
that
goal
would be
is to
interesting.
even it out, though. I think the cool part, at least from the beginning of the book, was leading us down this path of perfect balance doesn't happen because you don't have enough time to fully balance everything. It's about figuring out the moments of imbalance that match what your goals are and what you're focused on, right? Like Jason's mentioned a couple of times his relationship with his son. So if there are days where he's all in on being dad and spending intentional time with his son, then that has to be okay that he's not doing anything at work, right? It's about accepting the level of imbalance that might happen, or I'm going to focus on the things that need my attention today, but it's not going to be everything, right?
Yeah.
And not feeling guilty for making that decision.
That's right. And
Yeah.
That's me talking,
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
Define your own success, because if you said, I want to drive $3 million in new revenue for my company this year, but I also want to spend an additional 10 hours a week with my son, those two things maybe don't line up.
that's gonna
and
be
that's
tough.
okay. Just be real with yourself. Like, again, like, why are you letting other people define your success? Where did you get that number even? It's
Right.
a very round number. Why that?
Yeah.
You know? And
I always like to put 59 cents on the
and 59 cents. Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's right. That's a good tip. Pro tip right there.
Something just popped in real quick. I don't know how much time we have left, but my best friend, years, know everything about each other, that kind of relationship, right? She's in a different season of life. Her kids are middle school, one's in high school, very, very involved in sports. She has a very demanding job. Her husband has a very demanding job. And we get to see each other maybe a couple of times a year, right? And this
Molly,
past,
did we just become best friends?
Everybody listening goes, am I Molly's best friend?
I'm Molly's best friend.
I felt she was speaking to me.
she says to me at Christmas, because we make that time intentional, she said, I'm sorry that I can't be a better friend to you right now. I'm like, what do you, takes me off guard, puts me on guard. And I said, what are you talking about? I don't understand how do you think you're not being my friend? She's like, because I'm just so busy with the kids. And I said, listen, this is a season of life that you're in. In 4 years, you're going to be asking me how the hell I got through the season that I'm in as the kids have gone and life continues to grow. It's just a different season. I don't hold that against you. In fact, it brings me joy to know how intentional you're being with your kids. Mm-hmm. And the relationships that you're going to have with them because of that intentionality. You're not going anywhere for me, and I'm not going anywhere for you. But it's the people in your life that aren't like that are the ones that you need to get rid of, that are clouding your life board, that are clouding your vision board. The people that can't support you for the decisions that you're making that they don't agree with.
Or
It's
the
none of their
others,
damn business.
Yeah, or the others who are fully adrift. And
Yeah.
you're like, I don't want to be tethered to you.
No.
And look, you can be friends with those people,
Yes.
but they are not the person you go to for advice. You're not having those real fire pit conversations,
Yeah.
About, what you want to do in life, because they don't get it. They're like, what kind of crazy stuff are you talking about?
How many times have I
Yeah.
gotten that? You need to stop taking this risk. You need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
You need to this. And I'm like, hang on. Have I ever asked you for anything?
Right.
Uh-oh.
And your fear is
Two
not
snaps
coming
and a
off on
twist.
me. I'm not taking your fear and owning it because you think I'm making bad decisions.
Right.
I'm sorry.
2 snaps and a twist. Did I say that right? 2 snaps and a twist.
Pretty
I
much.
think there's a
Z
lot of
how it goes?
there's a lot of variations.
Z-snap.
I think it works.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
a Z formation.
Yeah,
one's
and there's that old saying that if you look at your circle of friends, look at the 5 closest people
Mm-hmm.
around you, in 3 years you're going to be those people. So it's osmosis really. So if you've got that person who is chronically adrift, and you're spending all your time with it, guess what? You're going to become a little unmoored to your vision board, your goals, your objectives, and suddenly the two of you are in your own life raft together. Congratulations.
Well, and then people our age, I'm putting us in a clump, this age that we are roughly together.
I'm way younger than all of you. I just want to put that out there. So.
You can fact that, check that online, people.
I'm triggered.
But the age we're in, I mean, it is hard to make friends because you either rely on your old friends or you bump into people through work maybe that have some similar interests, but then neither one of you have time to really do anything. So you are devoted to your job or your kids or whatever's going on in your life, and you don't have time for that. So it is hard because we're talking about this, but I mean, these people in this room, we spend some time together doing this. We've never talked about this before.
Right.
So
I'm so glad we did, by the way.
I am too.
In fact, this might be one of my favorite ones that we've done so far. And my genuine hope for everybody who's listening is that it might inspire you to add a dose of intentionality to your life, especially because I'm sitting in the presence of individuals that you can tell how doing that has positively affected theirs. And that's what we want for you, is solutions to hard things. So I'm going to go on this journey. And the good thing is I know people who have done it. And that's powerful. So, Jim?
Before we get there, remember.
See, we invite him one time.
I know.
And he just keeps, he's like, guys, you got to keep it to 20 to 30 minutes.
This is my one time. No. See you next week.
People are circling the block trying to get to their commutes.
It's the fact that you guys have the Workforce Therapy File Facebook page and some other social media channels out there. If you've listened to this, if this has kind of resonated with you, if you're kind of motivated for this, or you have a resource that you're currently using, hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you're doing. Let us know what, kind of what's going on there. If you've got a book that's really kind of made an impact, and just different things like that. Share with us kind of what you're doing, because there's other people that are going to be looking at that same timeline, looking at those same comments, going, "Wow, I'm glad you said that because I didn't know anything about it." So anyway, that's my piece for the end of the show.
Well,
I
and as
appreciate it.
Andy Dufresne said from Shawshank Redemption,
Here we go.
get busy living or get busy dying.
That's right. That's a good quote, Dan.
All right.
All right, Jim, close that file.
Close that file, J. Ray.
Thanks for listening to the Workforce Therapy Files. We hope you learned something new, and we're thankful for the time that you spent with us today. If there's a topic you'd like us to discuss, reach out to us. Our contact information's listed in the show notes. Until next time, keep your head up.